I am a big fan of Atlas games. They make some really good stuff. I've tackled Shin Megami Tensei, some Persona, and the recent Metaphor ReFantazio. But I've yet to talk about Etrian Odyssey, a hard-as-nails dungeon-crawling JRPG that first released on the Nintendo DS. The general idea is you explore a labyrinth and fight in turn-based battles. The touchscreen gimmick here is that dungeons are huge, and so to not get lost, you have to draw your own map. It is a niche series, certainly not as popular as Megaten or Persona, but it has its fans, myself included. In fact, I'm playing the HD remasters during my off time. It's successful enough that there are 5 mainline titles and a few spin-offs, including 2 Persona games, so maybe some of you have also liked these. Well, it just so happens that I was looking at new JRPG releases, and I found one that's heavily inspired by Etrian Odyssey. This is Shujinkou, released on February 13th of this year. It's the first game of a new studio called Rise Games, and the first part of what's to become a trilogy. And I played through a fair amount of it, enough to make a review I think. There is one key difference in Shujinkou that separates it from Etrian Odyssey though. Shujinkou also tries to teach you the Japanese language. You start the game and you're asked whether you want to learn or not. So not only is Shujinkou a dungeon crawling JRPG, it's also an educational game. Oh boy, those 2 words are poison to a gamer's ears. We want to rot our brains, not go to class. But Shujinkou is for sure a video game. It's heavily inspired by Etrian Odyssey. The language learning part is a bonus. While personally, I barely know any Japanese, but I know the most important terms like neko, kawaii, or maewa, mo shinderu, or pai. Kidding aside, I'm not really interested in the education bit. Dungeon crawling is what I want to look at, which is actually pretty solid. I'll review the educational aspect in the end. Unfortunately, the Japanese lessons fit into the game's theme. It's set in a fictional Japanese world. You play as a samurai named Shu. Together with his friends and allies, he'll go on a mission to investigate the rise of Akuma, demons all throughout the land. Dungeons take the form of maze-like labyrinths that our heroes have to investigate and traverse. If you played Etrian Odyssey, this will be immediately familiar to you. You move around on a grid-based system and you also have a map. Unlike in Etrian Odyssey though, the mapping system is fully automated, and it serves its function pretty much flawlessly. I actually really like how easy it is to use. Other features it borrows from EO are resource spots that you can gather from 3 times per day, and the day and night cycle. Some mobs appear more frequently at certain times. And there's also the encounter gauge that tells you how close a random encounter is. So now let's talk about combat. At the start of the game, our only offensive option is the strike command. It's our normal attack, but it can be imbued with elemental damage by using Kanakai orbs. The elemental chart might be familiar to Megaten fans too. We have 8 properties in total: physical, fire, water, wood, metal, and earth, as well as light and dark later on. The resistance table is similar too. You have weakness, resist, null, reflect, and drain. There's also learn, which I don't know what it does. There's no extra turn mechanic in this game though, so the bonus we get for hitting weaknesses is to your GR gauge. Think of it like the boost gauge in Etrian Odyssey. You can do special actions once it fills up. Enemies also have another weakness. Notice that enemy names are denoted as question marks. All enemies start like this, and we have to use Kanakai orbs to reveal their Japanese names. Kanakai orbs correspond to the Japanese alphabet, and using a character included in the enemy's name will hit their ontological weakness. Compared to elemental weakness, it deals more damage and gives more boost gauge. And it is worth it to complete the whole name of enemies, because once you do, that enemy will take 50% more damage for the rest of the game. It's actually pretty fun. And even though it required me to engage with the Japanese alphabet while I don't have any interest, I'm glad to say that you only need to learn the basics of how characters interact. I have yet to memorize a single character, they're still just squiggly lines to me. But we can observe a monster's Romaji name by other means to help with uncovering the Japanese name. Now, there are 2 other battle commands which are locked at the start. This is a big thing in Shujinkou. New mechanics are unlocked as the game progresses, and it feels off because some of them are core mechanics, like the Arawasu. These are your character's skills. They range from attack and support skills during battle to exploration benefits like HP regen for a certain number of steps. Again, same as in Etrian Odyssey, characters have a skill tree for you to decide what skills to get, and you also get 1 skill point per level. And it works fine, but the problem is it's unlocked 8 hours into the game, meaning battles prior to that are bare bones. It's just items and basic attacks. That is quite a trial period. There's also the Kakusei, the break skills in the game. They're accompanied by minigames that determine the potency of the break skill, and they are tough. I've only managed to hit the sweet spot on Shu's break skill just once, and never again after that. The last battle mechanic we unlock is Kosho, Negotiations. So another idea taken from SMT. It's unlocked 10 hours into the game, but it's conclusively pointless. See, the main point of demon negotiations in Megami Tensei is recruiting demons. But in Shujinkou, you cannot recruit Akuma. Everything they can give us, money, healing, items, we can get those by just winning in combat. To the developer of this game, if you want us to use a mechanic, you gotta make it more rewarding than this. And here's an idea, turn the Akuma into trading cards that can be used for crafting or something. Another borrowed mechanic from Etrian Odyssey are FOEs, which are called Yaju, but this game has its own unique twist. There are two kinds of FOEs. Red FOEs work like in Etrian Odyssey. They will move with the player. Blue FOEs, however, move at their own pace, disregarding your movement priority. This means that instead of the FOE being dictated by your movement, it is now the player that's being led around by the FOE. And I really like this feature, it works quite well. As the game progresses, labyrinths will introduce new obstacles like mud and conveyor belts. Really, the dungeons are the best aspect of the game, but it's held back by stiff controls. Look at my inputs. For some reason, I have to tap twice to go to the direction I want to go. And this happens every single time. It's not an issue in menus or anywhere else, it's just when navigating the dungeons. Fortunately though, the dev is aware of the issue and is working on a fix. And I hope they follow through. But I really am not kidding about the crawling pace of new features. I know there's going to be a cooking mechanic in this game because there's an ingredients item category, but I am 30 hours in and I have yet to unlock it. Meanwhile, my inventory is full of this stuff, so I have to start tossing some out. It'd be fine if I could sell or store them, but for some reason I can't. That is really annoying. Even so, it's hard to deny the game's quality. The graphics are mainly composed of 2D illustrations and mesh animation. It is clearly low budget, but still high quality. It's like if Etrian Odyssey decided to have a baby with Paper Mario. That's the aesthetic vibe I get from Shujinkou. And the music is also worth complimenting. Most tracks are serviceable and fit the overall style of the game, but there are some really good bangers here as well. I like how each dungeon has its own unique theme during exploration and battle. No two dungeons share the same battle theme thus far. I have no complaints about the music in this game, but then again I have only heard less than half of its tracks. There are over 200 tracks in this game. That's impressive for a small studio. There is also a very detailed lexicon. It contains info about the monsters we fought, the items we picked up, and some Japanese learning material. One thing I don't like about the lexicon is the inconsistency. The resource tab in the item compendium shows exactly where we can get each resource, but not so in the ingredients tab. Having them give the same info couldn't be hard to implement, really. I'm starting to go into negative criticism now, so let's continue. You can buy equipment from the game shop called Mokobukiya. I do not know if that translates to anything. I'm assuming it means smithy, because we can also forge weapons and armor here. Slight issue with this though. Most gear that we can forge is either equal to or downright inferior to the ones we can just buy with money. And the forging system here doesn't mimic the one in Etrian Odyssey. If you sell your materials to the smithy, they're gone for good. You have to keep your crafting materials with you. That makes forging a bit more tedious. It is rarely ever worth it. Navigating towns is also a slog. Towns are where we can access the shops, resting spots, and the quest board. And each town also has numerous NPCs that we can talk to. Problem is, all points of interest in town are bunched up in a line that we have to scroll to one at a time. I get what they were going for here. They want to make it feel like you're walking through town. But that means I have to press more buttons every time I want to go somewhere. It is tedious. And you know what else is tedious? The escape command. When you try to escape from a fight, you're asked a trivia question. You have to mash the button that matches with the correct answer, and the more you mash, the better your chances of escape. And I hate this. This mechanic does three things. Number 1, it lengthens the escape sequence so battles take longer overall. Number 2, mashing is exhausting. And 3, even with my best efforts at mashing, escape can still fail. It sets me off every time I get unlucky. So maybe I should just avoid escaping, right? Well, I'm just escaping from battles because level scaling is unbalanced. I'm actually getting over-leveled without doing anything special. By the time I got an extra party member, I was 8 levels ahead of them. There's also a lot of small issues, like NPC bubbles showing up even after we've seen their dialogue, the UI making it difficult to see what's currently selected at a glance, unskippable map intros that makes traveling slower, and looky here, our character stats in battle are over to the right side, a design choice taken from modern Persona games. Now that would be fine, except enemy attack animations happen over there too. It really doesn't look good. Plus, you see this half circle that goes into a straight line? That's your health bar. That circular part makes it hard to gauge how much health we have remaining at a glance. But by far, my biggest gripe about this game are the side quests. Like in Etrian Odyssey, you can only accept up to 5 quests at a time. But Shujinkou gives you lots and lots of side quests. You can get anywhere from 5 to 10 new quests every time you reach a new town or dungeon area. A lot of the side quests have overlapping objectives, like gathering ginger and other stuff. And some of them have more than one task to complete, so you'll be returning to NPCs repeatedly. But by far the most painful type of quest is anything involving normal monsters, be it hunting down X amount of cats or collecting their drops. This is because despite dungeons having multiple areas, every mob in the dungeon can appear at any area. It saturates the encounter table, therefore reducing the chance of finding the mobs you need. And here's an example. This lady here needs 3 snake scales. The lexicon says they're in the 3rd area of the 2nd dungeon. So I went there and I was not encountering the snakes. It took me 20 minutes to get the materials I needed. All of these factors, combined with other issues with navigating the world, makes questing in this game unbelievably tedious. But surely the rewards are worth it, right? Wrong! The reward is mostly experience, and not a lot of XP too. 5 random battles would net you the same amount. It is dire. I really think being able to accept more quests would be better, as well as fixing up the encounter table. So take it from me, you'll have more fun in this game if you avoid side questing as much as possible. I only cleared the ones with deadlines. Those quests will expire after a certain period in the story. There are also the partner quests, but those are actually worth finishing since they give permanent benefits like shop discounts and stat boost. Kinda like the Confidants in Persona 5. I believe this game is developed by just one guy, so let's discuss the bugs. Cause while there aren't a lot, the ones I did encounter are quite severe, like the fishing minigame not functioning at all. It can also be game breaking. Like here, I got stuck in a fade to black loop during a partner quest. Or the game will just outright give you a crash notification. And I cannot believe it, but this is actually the better outcome, since you can just click ignore to close the crash notif, save your game, and restart the app. Don't know if that has a chance of corrupting my save, and I can only hope. And finally, let's talk about the educational bit. I saved this for last because I really can't grade its effectiveness fairly. I have no interest in learning a new language right now, but I do have some things to say. First off are the kanban. Those are the signs that you'll find in dungeons. They are walls of text that exhausted me the moment I looked at them. It is not at all interactive, which means it's 0% fun. Next are the minigames. All the minigames in Shujinkou require certain levels of Japanese fluency. They are really difficult as a beginner. Believe me, I tried some of them. But again, I have a problem with this, mainly in its reward system. To start a minigame, you have to bet some money and also have to set a grade goal from E to S. The higher the goal you set, the better the reward multiplier. But after the game, if you don't make that goal, you lose money. That means you have to know your own level of knowledge precisely to even win, else you get punished. I think it's established in basic psychology that you should reward behaviors that you want to repeat, and punish behaviors that you want to stop. It's bad enough that we don't win anything, the dev also thinks it's a good idea to punish us. What would be wrong with just giving us a reward based on how we do? And finally, what I think is the biggest misstep in the learning process, the in-game characters have no voiceovers. There are voice clips, but only with the signs for pronunciation samples. Realistically though, this might be a budget issue, which I'm okay with since I'm here for the game, not for the learning bit. But man, characters having voice lines would have been so much better for both entertainment and learning. And as a side note, there's a way to have the English name of the enemy displayed during combat, which I also think would be helpful for learning. For some reason, however, it's tied to the combat difficulty. It only shows at easy difficulty and below, and that simply doesn't make sense from a learner's standpoint. In the end, I would say most this game will teach me about Japanese are monster nouns, cause the Akuma we face have basic names. I already learned that Kakotori is chicken, Wabi is crocodile, and Kirin is in fact not a lightning goat that one-shots unsuspecting monster hunters, but is actually a giraffe. The gaming website RPG Fans scored this game a 9.5 out of 10. In their review, they say this is the new gold standards for DRPGs. And nope, I disagree. Unless of course they're saying the gold standard is terrible town navigation, pointless mechanics such as forging and negotiation, and tedious quest design. For now, I'm gonna pull an IGN and give Shujinkou a 7 out of 10. The game is rough in many places, but it excels at channeling the Etrian Odyssey itch, which to me is what really matters. If you want to try it, the only obstacle in your way is time. There's a demo version that has at least 15 hours of gameplay, and after that, you can decide whether it's worth $30 to get the full game. It is a bit pricey, but I appreciate the dev for letting us have an extensive demo. By the way, if you're an Atlus game fan, either Megami Tensei or Etrian Odyssey, you will feel right at home at extreme difficulty. That's the highest setting the game has, and it feels just right for me. Now, if the dev happens to watch this video, let me say, I actually really like your game. It is flawed, but still good. Fix a couple of stuff and it has the potential to be really good. And with some changes, I would be willing to bump my final score up to 8 or maybe even 9 out of 10. Here's hoping that you'll continue to improve the experience, and may your Shujinkou trilogy come to life. And for the audience, thank y'all for watching. I'll post the Steam link to the game in the description if you want to check it out. Give me a thumbs up to help me out, and subscribe for more JRPG stuff and animations. See y'all next video.